Hello and welcome to another tutorial on data analysis. Today we are going to talk about some of the top function formula you should know in 2024, talking about Excel and talking about how to use some of this formula. Okay, so we are going to dive into it. So first, let's talk about data cleaning function in Excel. Data cleaning function for Excel analytics. Okay, so now we are going to start with the cleaning function, and remind you we have what we call trim. We use trim to remove excess space from text value. As you can see here, we have name, and then in between Bello, which is the first name, we have some excess space before we have Thomas. Okay, so what we use trim for is to remove that excess space. Now, let's do that. So first, we are going to start with our equals to. All commands start with equals to in Excel, okay? Equals to, then we type our trim, then we give it a bracket, and then the name of the column. So we have what? B3, okay? So we put B3, then we close the bracket, and we execute it. Now, let's drag it down. Okay, so perfect. Now, as you can see, we have achieved one of the cleaning. Okay, now the excess space have been wiped off, so we have our normal space, which is just a space in between the two names. So that's the first cleaning. Now let's talk about the second cleaning. So that has to do with the font, because the font looks so scattered. We have some in uppercase, lowercase, and then we have some in proper. So right now I'm going to do what we call proper. Now proper means first letter of the word in capital letter, then others in lower letter. So now let's get to that. So I'm going to go back to my Bello, which is my first name. So I'll move to the formula bar, then click at the beginning of trim. Then I'm going to include my proper, okay? So this can implement everything, and then we can have the right format of the font. So it's going to arrange all the font into first letter in capital letter, and the other words in small letter. Okay, so the next stage now is to type proper. So that's it. So you give it a bracket, and remember we have to close the bracket. So this is it. So now let's execute it. Okay, so let's go to the top. Bello Thomas. So let's drag it down. So that's it. So this is how it works. So data cleaning function for Excel analytics, mostly we use trim, and then we use proper. We can use our uppercase, fine, let's do that. Okay, so we come over here, we change the proper, we change it to what? Upper. Okay, so this is it, upper. Then let's execute it. Okay, so it works. Like I said, you can use uppercase, so this is what you get. Okay, let's change it back. Let's change it to lowercase. We click on it, go to your formula bar, then you change it to what? Lower. Okay, now click on it. Now let's execute it. Okay, now click on it back. Now let's drag it. So this is how data cleaning function works when it comes to Excel analytics. Let's talk about aggregate function. Aggregate function is especially useful in complex spreadsheets where data might be hidden or contain error. So using aggregate in data analysis, it comes with some special practical applications, okay? We can use aggregate function for data cleaning, meaning that it summarizes data while excluding irrelevant cells such as hidden rows or error in the cell. Okay, let's talk about dynamic reports. Okay, in aggregate function, you can create dynamic report that can handle data change, hidden rows, and error. Okay, now let's talk about error handling in aggregate function. Okay, using aggregate function without worry about error disruption, your calculation goes so smoothly. So in summary, using the aggregate function, you can create more robust, handles real-world data more effectively. So now let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so talking about aggregates, we use aggregate to do calculation of our sum, maximum, minimum. We use aggregate for our count and for our average. So right now I have a report of Dangote, and then we have the product, the price, the location, and the rank. If I'm to get the average of the price of this report, I can start with my equals to average. Then I have to select the cell, the range of this cell, and then close the bracket, then enter. Now you notice I have an error. Why? Because when you look at my C5, which is this row, there is an error there. So with this error, I can't get my average, my total average, I can't get it. So that is where aggregate function comes in. Okay, let's try sum and see how it works. Is equals to sum, okay, and let me select the range. Okay, and close it. What do we have? The same error. So that is where aggregate comes in. So aggregate function on its own, it excludes the error and give you the average or the sum that you are looking for. And remember, Excel has over 470 formulas, okay? Yes, that's right. So now, how do we resolve these kind of issues? First, let's start with aggregate function. That is the magic key right now. So is equals to aggregate, okay? We have to select it. Now, the first option is what exactly do we want to do, okay? Which functions do we want to apply? So we have average, we have count, we have maximum, so now we are focusing on the average, so we have to press number 1, which is average. And remember, this function has about 19, okay, in this list. Okay, let's start with number 1, which is the average, okay? Then you give it comma. Now, what is the next step? The next step is, what do you want to ignore? Is there any error? Is there any options you feel like can fit into this? And there is, because we have an error in my C5, okay? So I have to come down here and select number 6, which is ignore error value, okay? This is it. Ignore error value. So all I have to do is to press number 6 and give it a comma, okay? Now, if that is done, the next stage now is for me to select the range of the cell I'm calculating my average for, okay? So now I have to come over here, drag it down, and what next? I have to close the bracket. Now let's execute it. Perfect. That is it. So the total average for my price is 3.06. Okay, now let's talk about sum, okay? Let's work on sum. Now to do that, we start with what is equals to aggregate, the same process, okay? Now let's talk about the function number. So it's going to be number 9, okay? Now remember, the powerful function of this aggregate is that it can give you what you want, including the errors. It excludes the error out of it and gives you your total average or your total sum, okay? So right now we are selecting number 9, which is the function we want to use, which is sum, okay? 9, then we give it a comma. Now, what is the next step? The next step is, okay, in these cells, do you have any errors or options you feel like it fit into this list? Yes, we have, which is number 6. Ignore error value. And I told you that we have an error in my C5. Okay, so we choose number 6, right? Then we give it comma. Now the next one is to select our array. So we need to select the range of what we want the sum for. So we go up, drag it down, then close the bracket, then execute. Perfect. So we have 24.51 as our total sum. So using aggregate function is one of the hacking tools you can use. Now imagine you have like thousands of cells with values and you have a lot of errors like this. You can keep doing it one after the other, but using aggregates, it gives you option to ignore the error and give you the total sum on or average of what you want. Okay, so that's it. Have you ever want to generate a random list of number? Like you have a spreadsheet and you needed random number of different lists. Okay, now there's something we call RANDARRAY. Okay, what we use it for is to generate random list of number. I know you haven't heard of that. Okay, now let's do it. So the first thing you do is to type your equals to, then you type RANDARRAY. This is it over here. Now you double click on it and it gives you option. Now the first option is how many numbers of row do you want? I want 20. Then you give it a comma. The next option is how many number of column do you want? I want 5. Then you give it comma. Now the next stage is from what range to what range? Okay, I want from 1, comma, then to what? 100, comma. Now the next stage is the number of lists you want. Do you want them in decimal or a whole number called an integer? So I want it in integer. Then you double click on it and you close the bracket. Magic. Then you press enter. Just take a look at it. I told you we have a lot of hacking tools you can use to make your job smooth and fast. So now we just generate a random list of number using RANDARRAY. So this is how it works. Okay, now we have a spreadsheet here that talks about order date and delivery dates. Okay, so now have you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to get the difference between your order date and your delivery date? And at a point you feel like, how do I go about this? Here we are going to get it done. We have a shipping which has an order date of the 1st of June 2024, and we have the delivery date which is on the 30th August 2024. So now the assignment is to get the different days between the order day and the delivery date. Okay, now to achieve this, we are going to use a formula called DATEDIF. Okay, which probably a very few people knows about, but let's put it on the timeline and let's see how it works. Now, what DATEDIF does is that it gives you the difference between the order date and the delivery date. Also, the difference between the order date and the delivery date of months. Okay, so we are talking about difference between date, month, and year. Let's start with the day. Okay, now on the day part, how do we get the difference between the order date and the delivery date to get our difference day? That is the question. And for question number 2, how do we get the order date and the delivery date to achieve our difference month? And for the last one, how do we get our order date and delivery date to achieve our difference year? Now let's start with the first one. Now what we need to use is what we call DATEDIF. Now we start with equals to DATEDIF. Don't worry, just open the bracket, the option will show. So click on it. Now you can see that. So what is the first thing? We need to select our order date. We give it a comma. Then our delivery date, which is C3, we give it a comma. Then we give it a space and open this double quotes to indicate what we are working on. So we are working on our day. You give it D, then you close the double quote. And what next? You close the bracket. Now let's enter. That's it. So we have 90 days different from our order date and delivery date. So you can just double click it. Perfect. So that's it. Now, how do we get our difference month? We are going to apply similar formula, but just some little changes. So we start with is equals to DATEDIF. Then you open your bracket. Remember, we start with our order date. You give it a comma. We move to the next stage, delivery date. You give it a comma. Then space, open the double quote. Then you put your M, which means for months. Then you close the double quote, close the bracket. Then that's it. So you double click on it. Perfect. Now to achieve the difference for the year, we use what we call YEARFRAC. Okay? We call it YEARFRAC. So this can give you the actual difference of the year in decimal places. Okay? So let's do that. We can use the same formula we use in our difference days and difference month, but it gives you a whole number. Okay, so normally when it comes to years, we need something like decimal, like 0.25 in years. So we are going to use what we call our YEARFRAC to get this. So we start with is equals to YEARFRAC. So this is it. Then what are we calculating? We start with our what? Order day. Okay, and we move to what? Delivery date. Then we close the bracket, then enter. So that's it. 0.025, then we click down, double click on it. So this is how it works. This is amazing. Okay, so these are formula you use to achieve your order date, delivery date, just to get the difference of the day, month, and year. Thank you. Okay, let's work on this. We have the order date, delivery date, different days. Now we are looking for the working days. Okay, so we need to get the difference for the working days. Previously, we did different days, different months, and then different year. So let's talk about working days, not the difference, not so far. So we use what we call network days, okay? These only work for weekends. So what we do is just to type is equals to network days. That's it over there. So you come over there as usual. You start with your B3, okay? That's the order date. And you move to the next one, which is your delivery date. Then you close the bracket, then you enter. So this gives you your working day, okay? Perfect. Then you double click on it, gives you the order list, okay? So these work for working days. Thank you. Please kindly subscribe, like, and share for more videos. Thank you.